David Toulis.
City Council meets tomorrow at 6 o'clock for the usual meeting. The gathering is preceded by other gatherings, study committees, and hearings, and so on in the City Council chamber downtown. And the question I have, as I thought about the meeting last week, is will the members of the council act outside the form that seems to be binding them into silence? There seems to be, as I think about that meeting with the help of Marie Mott, I've been able to think about it more clearly. There seems to be a kind of stultified silence, a kind of inability to act outside the form of a meeting, right? In a meeting like that, you have an agenda, and there are parts of the agenda. For example, there's part that gives ordinances. There are variances for zoning. There's that part. And then there are sometimes readings, second readings, third readings on ordinances that are going through the system to become, ordinance bills that are intending to become ordinances. And then finally, there's a part on contracts and agreements and payments for services and goods. There's that. And John Bridger, the head of the Regional Planning Agency, sometimes speaks on zoning requests. Sometimes there's a part where there are contested zoning requests. There's maybe one day might have a series of arguments over Airbnb petitions, as there was a couple of weeks ago. And then finally, at the end, there is the part for public comment. The rule is that you cannot comment on something that's on the agenda. It has to be something outside the agenda, and you must use civil language and cannot have made a presentation in that venue more than or less than a month ago. So you have a limit on what you can say and how often you can speak. That Chris Dahl, for example, a county commission candidate, says is illegal. There can't be a limit on the people's presentation of their ideas to the public. So there is the limit itself. And who knows where those rules came from? Are they in the ordinance? They're not part of the charter, likely, but where do they come from? Why do we follow them now? And all the members assume that because they're there, they have a reason and they're right and true. So there is in the meetings of the city council, there is this structure which seems to prevent the humanity of the city council members from coming out. Or if there is not much humanity in those members, it is a structure that allows them to not have it and no one notice, right? Because the system of meetings and the orderliness of that gathering allows them to be submerged, if you will, in a kind of safety. There is in the city council, especially when we have a controversy now over routine police actions, which are widely viewed as abusive, right? They're widely viewed as abusive and praised by some law and order conservatives. These are occasions where you'd think that individual council members would want to make a scene, that there would be some passion or anger on their part. And yet it seems here on the David Toulis Show, as I think back on this, in fact, there's a great little essay by me on Nuganomics.com where I write. I'm the blogger with the biggest pen, so I write so that I know what to think about something, right? As I analyze all the parts and draw in the material to make an essay that gives a coherent presentation of a point that is coming into view, right? I write it, work on it, and refine it so that the point is either substantiated and I make it, or I realize that I'm chasing up a wrong argument here and I really can't sustain it. Then I drop it, right? If there's something, if I have an idea that's not proven and not borne out by the writing process, which is the evidence gathering part of my labor, well, then I just drop it. Clearly, I don't know what I'm talking about, and I just need to not waste my time. But on Nuganomics, there's a review several days after the event of Tuesday's city council meeting, and making note of the seeming indifference of the members. Even Demetrius Coonrod, who is the one, well, I don't know why one would think that she is the one to speak about police abuse. Why her? And yet it's somehow meeting everyone's expectations. Demetrius Coonrod had something to say at the meeting. She said it was not sustainable to have violence as a way of solving problems. That was one of her points. And she also objected to, as I'm trying to recall now, the fact that officers who impose the statute and impose ordinances in the neighborhoods are not from those neighborhoods and have no connection with them. So there's not an organic relationship. There's not really enough community policing, if you will, in these neighborhoods in her district. But what about all the other members of the city council? Why did no one say anything? That's what really got me. And that's really, especially when we heard Marie Mott, who has a terrific show starting today at 11 o'clock in the morning here on Nougat Radio. She's a very eloquent spokesman and a concerned social activist, and she has a great program that you can hear tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Why, in spite of what she had to say at the council meeting, why is it that nothing caught, right? There was a spark thrown by her, and perhaps even by me, because I did have a word or two for the good people in the council about you, my listener. And but nothing happened. There was no energy. There was no uproar. There was no disorder. And I'm asking, why was there no disorder? Why does the form control the content? Why do we have a public meeting and there's no free-for-all? No one's shouting. No one is standing up behind the podium there on the raised dais, which is the platform for the city council members. Why is no one up there saying, what are we going to do? Why is it so civil? That's my question. Why so civil? And there's perhaps the question touches on this question of the expectation touches on on government. Why government is slow. Government thinks slowly over things. People in elected office are not quick to move. They don't want to begin an arduous process of planning a bill or planning a program, because they know it's going to take, here they are, part-time legislators, right? They know it's going to take hours and hours of their time. So city council members, they're not eager to jump into big projects. Look at Carol Burrs. She is Dr. Burrs. She's a woman with a doctorate of jurisprudence and runs a dispute resolution business. I mean, she's a businesswoman. And so even though she's very empathetic, has great empathy for the city, great love for the city, she's not going to immediately jump onto something that's going to create a lot more work, right? So no one wants to do a lot of extra work, and so there's that sense of inertia. Well, we have things in place, right, that should take care of police abuse. We have things in place that if there is something wrong, well, the court will settle that, right? We have a city judicial branch, which is city court, and we have the county courts. We have circuit court and criminal court, and things are disposed of there. So what do we really need to do? How can we think that there's anything that we can do? I mean, we just write ordinances and vote on the budget, which we just did. We voted for $73 million for the police department, and we're busy, right? We're busy, and what else can we do? How can we reflect the interest of the people? How can we reflect the anxiety of the people? What do we do to better serve them? And somehow I'd like to ask. I think the answer there are a couple of possible answers to why there's this stasis, this inability to move, this non-movement of the council members, this lack of passion. Except for Mrs. Coonrod, and even her, as I was mentioning, Demetrius Coonrod, even her, there was a kind of trailing off in her comments. She was not making a statement. She did not. She did make a statement. Don't get me wrong. She did make a statement, but somehow it ended inconclusively. It was not definitive. It was not loud. It was more of a whimper than a bark. And from her, I want more. I expect more from Demetrius Coonrod than that. And I'm wondering if there was any internal angst on her part on saying as little as she did, or how was it that she was torn not to do more and to say more? Did she not want to make a scene? Did she not want to embarrass herself in front of her colleagues? Is that it? Did she want to maintain their respect? Now, see, here we have a problem. If that's true, we have a problem of being in fear of men and wanting the favor of men. And it's a scriptural warning that the fear of man is a snare. Is a snare, and it always is a snare. And the fear of man could be not wanting to upset an orderly proceeding of a city council. That's the fear of men. The fear of men is being not thought evil of, not being thought of as one to bring inconvenience to our organization, to our session, making our meeting go along. Here the crank member of the city council. And there he's standing up. Oh, he's upset. And he's pointing. Oh, look, he's raising his voice. In fact, he doesn't even need his mic. He's standing there and he's pointing to Chief Eric Tucker and saying, "Why are you doing this?" And making a scene. Clearly, this person on the city council is a populist. Clearly, this person is making he's making things dramatic so we can get the point. Whoa, this is pretty exciting. Oh, but good grief, the meeting's going to go into the second hour now. We can't have that. We certainly cannot have a meeting that goes past 2 hours. That would really be beyond what we plan on, and we've got to get home tonight. And so the person who is doing these wild things that I'm proposing, right? I'm trying to raise that kind of candidate in your esteem, by the way. Someone who doesn't care what other people think. That's the kind of person we need to have on city council. Someone who is going to make a stink about something and is going to make a scene about something, and who is upset that Diana Watt is dragged out of her car on a transportation stop, not even involved in transportation, and in violation of transportation administrative notice. The officer putting his neck on the line by doing that because he's acting in personal capacity outside the authority of the statute. We need someone to say things like that, okay? Someone to say, how is it that Avery Gray's daughter, Monday, 1 week ago, now 7 days ago, had a preliminary hearing on charges of resisting arrest, stop, and frisk? That can't apply to her. Why is there even a hearing in her dealings with Officer Wright? How can there be a hearing for her when she did not use force against him? It's on video. Everybody saw the video, her video, and the officer's video. There's no force at all, and she cannot be charged with that. She cannot be charged with that. She could not be legally charged with that, and yet she was. Why? Because the officer has to justify himself somehow. He has to justify himself somehow. So there's going to be some vague charge which doesn't apply. The facts do not apply. The facts do not raise to the claims of that criminal accusation, and yet she was still charged. And she and her mother had to go before Magistrate Owen, who dismissed the case with words in favor, according to Avery Gray, the mother, words in favor of Avery Gray and her family, saying that the daughter was not in the system and that this woman had 3 teenagers in her home in a very difficult financial situation, very difficult financial life that she has as a forklift operator who lost her job last week and has other problems, and now is before the judge on a criminal charge for her daughter. Now, the city council member who knows about this story and has read about this story in the press, namely me, should say, we're not going to have a regular meeting when our branch of government has the power to stop what's happening. And it does have that power. And I'm citing as my authority in this Tennessee jurisprudence, which is the legal encyclopedia, which I would love to have a copy of Tennessee jurisprudence, by the way. If you know of an attorney who's retiring and has a set, I would love that attorney would think of David Toulis, who just needs his own set of Tennessee jurisprudence, not the online version for which you have to pay, I don't know, $300 or $400 a year to get, but the hard copy, which if you buy it new, costs about $2,000. I'm just a poor writer with worn jackets and worn out bow ties, and I can't afford that. But I would like to have my own set. In that volume, under police power, is the discussion about where that power comes from. And I'm holding up for my viewer on YouTube. And YouTube, by the way, we are on YouTube live on YouTube. And if you have a late model television set, your TV can watch my show you can watch my show on your TV in your living room. How about that? It's like Talk TV, and you can the type is so clean on the image. You can read it. You can actually read it and read my footnotes and my notes on the top. Anyway, I use red. I use pencil. I use the yellow marker on this one, the front page. So it's highly marked and highly read little piece of writing. And it says this. It says this, that the police power resides in the legislative branch. Now, for me, that was an interesting point because I always thought that police power was executive. Well, it is executive because it's used by the executive ostensibly to impose the order of the ordinance or the statute, right? And ordinances or statutes come from where? You remember, right? You remember your high school civics class. They come from the legislative branch. So they come from, in Chattanooga, in East Ridge, the city council. In Red Bank, they come from the city commission. Don't get me started on Red Bank, okay? And the executive branch, the mayor's office, Red Bank except, because Red Bank is entirely dysfunctional, but the mayor executes the will of the people in his policy, right? The mayor executes. He is the executive, the head executive. He executes. He makes it happen. And well, what's happening? Well, police power is what's happening. So when there's an ordinance that takes effect, whether it's a ban on panhandling or regulation of food trucks, which is something that has been before Chattanooga City Council, that's done by the executive branch. Through what? Through the police department. And so the police department is an executive function that serves, whose power comes from and originates, it is said, in the General Assembly or in the City Council. It does not reside in the courts. It clearly does not, but in the body of the people. So if the people of Chattanooga who vote in these officers want to have a say on policing, well, they have to have their representative tomorrow at the city council have something to say. Now, in my review at Nuganomics.com, just go through. I try to mention something about all the members of that body, and I want to mention just a couple here, just to put a little color in my little feature here, right? My little feature of the city council being asleep. Well, they're not really asleep, but my analysis is that they're held by the form, and they're also held by the fact that the city attorney is at the center of the show. That should not be. The city attorney should not sit at the center of the city council. It's just simply wrong. It's simply screwed up. It's screwed up. He represents the law in a way. He represents analysis of law. He represents research of law, but he is not a policymaker. He is simply not. He's an advisor. He should not ever be at the center. And we know about Wade Hinton, of course, the man who has held that seat for some time. He's resigning and going to work for Unum Insurance Company in inclusion and whatnot. But the point here I'm making about the city council is that the Robert Rules of Order type, the rule maker, the lawyer, should not be at the center. No. If this is a body of the people, it needs to be freewheeling and wild. It has to be wild. It has to be violent. There has to be disorder in it. And why is that? Because this body represents the people, right? It can't have so much order that there's no life left. And that's what's happened. The city council in Chattanooga is a supine, sleepy, slightly paralyzed. It's in an altered state of consciousness. It seems, and I'm wondering what you, my listener, are going to do about it. You, my listener, 800-8949 is the number. 800-8949 is the number. And this is a talk show. You know, this is not just David Toulis. I mean, there's more to our dealings here on the radio than just you're hearing my analysis of things. And I really appreciate you giving me that 1 minute of your time. You know, if I get a couple minutes of your time every day, I'm a happy journalist. I'm a happy blogger, the blogger with the biggest pen. 800-8949, 800-8949. Why don't you give me a call? We've got things to look at that are, and I'm not done with city council. Okay. I'm not done. We want to hear what Carol Burrs says. He has a remarkable position on on a matter. Jerry Mitchell. And what about Darren Ledford? Darren Ledford is the one I'd say who has probably the strongest interest in constitutional government. He is a kind of a patriot, kind of a Boy Scout sort of person. When the assembly at the beginning of a city council meeting stands to say the Pledge of Allegiance, he has a hand motion. I'm not sure from where it comes, but a hand motion that kind of replicates the words, gives the meaning. Maybe it's in sign language. I'm not sure exactly, but he is very passionate about the Pledge of Allegiance. And so, what about him? What does Darren Ledford say? What could he say? What could he have had ready on short notice Tuesday? A little lecture about probable cause. Maybe we'll hear that little lecture tomorrow. There's more here. David Toulis, and also something on what's called UPL. What is that?
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Flash flooding swept away cars in downtown Chattanooga over the weekend. East 20th Street proved to be a major trouble spot.